Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is illustrator, educator, and president of the Society of Illustrators, Alan Cober. As an artist, you don't have to wear just one hat, creatively speaking. It is quite all right to wear as many hats as you like. Among other topics, Leslie and I talk about who the great Alan Cober was as an illustrator and a father. She tells us how she's come to wear all of her hats. And Leslie shares advice for illustrators from her father. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
I've been listening to the other podcasts you've been interviewing. Geez. It's been fun to watch. I just listened to Sophie this morning while I was on the elliptical. And
the best time. That's the best time. It is the best.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love podcasts. It's my, I've always listened to a lot of music, and I'm very into concerts and, rock music and things. Sure. And I always listened to that when I was working out, which I love to work out. And I felt that now I really enjoy podcasts, like kind of learning things at the same time I'm working out. So I've been listening to your podcasts a lot as well.
Leslie, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
The Society had a podcast. I looked for it over the last couple of days and I couldn't find it. And I don't remember what it was called. I don't even know if it had a name, but there were like maybe 6 episodes or so, maybe 7. And it was interesting. It was, good chats about illustration. And anyway, I don't want you guys to start a podcast because then I have competition, but that's something that seems like it would be a good fit.
I feel like we had the podcast during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, we were trying to figure out all kinds of things to keep the connection going because we were closed for a while, of course, and things had gotten really quiet, but we still wanted to keep a connection with, the community. Mm-hmm. We also had a podcast where people were in their studios and they were giving a tour of their own studios. I did one of those on it. So
for YouTube, right?
Yeah. So we were trying to make the best of what we could do at that time.
You, Leslie.
Yes.
Are the daughter of a one Alan Edwin Cober. Newsflash.
Yes.
For folks who aren't familiar, he was a groundbreaking visual journalist, an illustrator, although I understand he wasn't the biggest fan of that term. He preferred drawer. He was an educator. He was the president of the Illustrators Workshop, which was a renowned program that involved Mark English, Bernie Fuchs, Robert Heindel, Fred Otnes, and Bob frickin' Peak.
Right.
I think that was Bob's middle name. I'll check my notes later. I love this. Right. I love this quote from your dad. What do I draw? Pictures. What kind of pictures? Anything interesting or challenging or not so interesting, and a few that are boring.
Right. Well, he thought of himself as a visual journalist. That was really important to him, that he was documenting real things. He loved drawing from life. He really preferred that. Even when he had editorial assignments, he would want to go to the places where these things were taking place. Right. He was really one of the first who would come up with ideas of assignments he wanted to create and go speak to art directors about it. For example, Rolling Stone magazine was one, with Fred Woodward. Mm-hmm. He created assignments and he actually covered the Pope. When the Pope came to the United States, he went to Fred and he said, he had this idea to cover the Pope like it was a concert that was touring the United States. Right. So he would come up with these assignments, and Fred, who had worked with him many times, agreed to it. And he would work with Time magazine and he would cover presidential campaigns. He covered the presidential campaign for Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan. He was on Air Force One and he was drawing them live. And he did a lot of those kind of assignments for corporations as well. So I think he was groundbreaking in that way. At that time, there were a lot of pretty pictures being created for publications. And his pieces weren't pretty pictures. No. At that time, I think it was a turning point for a conceptual, grittier look. Yeah. And he was very honest with his pictures, like The Forgotten Society, which is a book that was created. And actually, when The Forgotten Society was printed a second time by Dover Publications, I created the introduction for it, which talked about living with, my father as an artist, how my family reacted to things. And, he was going into nursing homes and
mental institutions,
prisons. Willowbrook was an institution that was in Long Island, and it started as an assignment for the New York Times, and it was just going to be a few illustrations, and he ended up doing over 100 illustrations, and then it became The Forgotten Society, which Dover Publications printed. Yeah. So he enjoyed that. He enjoyed speaking to the people he was drawing, and Norman Rockwell was a big fan of my father's. When
you don't say.
Yeah, Norman Rockwell, when they were at the Society of Illustrators, my father had gotten a award Artist of the Year, and Norman Rockwell, I think it was the year after my father, when my father walked in, people said, Norman Rockwell's upstairs. He really wants to meet you. So, you just never, I think as illustrators, we're very open to what other people do as well. And that I always love that story that with what Norman Rockwell did. And, everyone loves the beloved Norman Rockwell. He really enjoyed and appreciated what my father did.
Finish that story. What did they do? Did they get drunk? Did they take shots or something? What was
they did meet, and my mother was always with my father at all of these things. And
she was also an artist, right? She was
she's not an artist. She's not an artist. She's very creative, my mother, but she's not an artist. And she really was just a partner with my father. She didn't work out of the house, but she looked after my brother and I, and she was a true partner with my father, and she went wherever my father went with openings and things. And my mother has a lot of the stories, and she said that Norman Rockwell had invited them to his studio and they never went. And she still said, why didn't we go? I don't understand why we didn't go. We should have, because my father very often would trade illustrations with different artists. She's like, he could have done our portrait. We could have traded. I don't know why we didn't go. So it's funny enough, my parents would always get me signatures from different illustrators. So I have a signature that Norman Rockwell wrote on the menu from that night to Leslie and Peter, my brother, Norman Rockwell.
Speaking of podcasts, the Rockwell has or had one too for a minute, and they didn't continue on with it. And not that I'm complaining, but that's another museum that just feels like that would have been a perfect fit. I understand your parents hosted parties. Illustrators would come over.
Yes. I had an amazing childhood. And
that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I had an incredible childhood. I grew up in Ossining, New York, which is this great town along the Hudson River.
North of Tarrytown.
Yes.
North of Beacon.
Yeah. And those were the days where people had dinner parties. Funny enough, when my mother watches Mad Men, she says, that was our life too. And you think it's exaggerated, but not that my parents were drinkers, they weren't, but they did have parties, and they would invite the illustrators of that time where, my parents were friends with a lot of illustrators and art directors and creative directors. And
that's the way to stay busy. Hey, come on over. Here's
it was
a roast
really,
beef.
And well, funny enough, when you say that, my mother would cook meals in those. She would cook meals.
I'm imagining it that.
One of my fondest memories is going upstairs to sleep and hearing all the laughing and chattering downstairs of, all these people. There were dinner parties around this time where would be my father's birthday. They always had a big party, an outdoor party called the Azalea Festival, because we had a lot of azaleas at my home, and it was right around my father's birthday. That was a bigger party where they would have all of their friends. So I was surrounded by the most successful, creative people in the industry all the time as a child. So it was a really positive, happy upbringing.
Speaking of Rockwell, there is a painting. I don't know what it's called. Let me see if I can paint a picture for you and the listener.
Okay.
Where there's a little girl sitting at the top of the steps in her pajamas, like she's supposed to be asleep. And you look down the steps and there is a warm, lit, dense crowd of adults having a dinner party.
Right.
That's you.
Yeah. I would come down in my pajamas and talk to everybody, and then I would go upstairs and I would just be getting ready to go to sleep, and I would just hear them laughing downstairs. And I love that memory.
Bernie Fuchs would slip you a $5 bill. Here you go, honey. Buy yourself some candy.
The artists from the Illustrators Workshop were not at my home when I was a child. It was really a different group. When the Illustrators Workshop started, my father would have lunches during the Illustrators Workshop, and I would go to those lunches because I wouldn't take part in the Illustrators Workshop, even though my father really wanted me to. I was a bit intimidated because I was younger and I was already going to be an illustrator. I knew by 5 years old I was going to be an illustrator, but I didn't actually want to participate in doing the artwork because I didn't want to be looked at. It's like, what is Alan Cober's daughter doing? But I would meet up to have lunch with them very often because there were certain people who used to come and I wanted to spend some time with them by sitting with them.
Yeah. I mean, Bernie Fuchs is one of my favorite personal favorite illustrators.
Yes.
I'm almost afraid to ask this. Was he a nice guy?
They were all nice. They were all really great. No, they were all real. Bernie Fuchs was a really nice man, and his wife, Babe, very nice. I just remember her always having a camera around her neck. I know she would take photographs. They were all great, and none of them survive now. I mean, it's really incredible that my mother's really the last of that group, but I'm connected to a lot of their children. Yeah. I think it's just almost a family feeling that their children are almost like brothers to me in a way.
Maybe I should have your mom on the podcast. I think I might have the wrong member of your family. Let me hold on a second. Let me just go ahead and email her real fast.
That's, my mother's 86 right now. And, my father and I have a piece that's going to be in the show that's coming up at the Norman Rockwell Museum, for the 250th anniversary of the U.S., called From Revolution to Rockwell. And I'm bringing my mother to the opening of the show. She doesn't really go out that often, but she really wants to go to that. So she's going to make an appearance.
Well, that's a lovely place to make an appearance at. Yes. So nicely done.
Yes.
I had Antonia Weaver, speaking of children of great illustrators, Robert Weaver's daughter, on the podcast a little while ago. We had a similar conversation about just sort of growing up among one of the greats, one of the 20th century greats, if not one of the greats, forget the century. When you think back on your dad, outside of art, I mean, maybe the answer is azaleas, we'll see. What often comes to mind?
My father was my biggest fan.
Nice.
So often people ask me how I could actually even choose to go into illustration when I had a father who was so successful in it.
Right.
And my father made me feel like I didn't have to worry about anything, that he was my biggest fan. And really from a young age, he always told me I was better than him. I'm better with color. I'm better with this. I'm better. So I didn't even know it was a problem being in the same occupation as my father. So I really admire him for making me feel that way. And the most important thing I feel with my father, of course, he was a great artist, and I watched him in his studio my whole entire childhood. It's all I knew for art, when I'd go in his studio and sit on his floor and, work in there on my own projects. But it's the legacy in the long run for people. And it's all the people who have told me that he mentored them, he helped them, he supported them. And that's always what's been most important to me, is the personality and who he was, besides his drawing skills of what he did. So he was a really great family man. He took my mother, my brother, and I on many of his work trips. We traveled around the country when he was working, for the national parks and doing posters for all the different canyons. If he didn't go with my mother, if she was staying home with us, he would take either my brother or myself on trips. So he included us in his career. And I think that's one of the most important parts, because work comes and goes, but your family and how you act in those ways means the most to me.
Yeah, same answer with Antonia.
Really?
Seems like illustrators tend to be good dads. Robert Weaver was a good dad.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I don't know what your dad's secret was. Maybe you can tell me, but my daughter is at 15 is a way better artist than I was at that same age. And I try and tell her that, and she doesn't want any damn part of it.
But that's only because she's 15. Those things change. Those things change, because I remember when, he'd be so nice, or my mother would be so nice, and I'd get up and I'd be like grumpy in the morning. I didn't really even want to hear a compliment too, because I was 15. But, as you grow older and you really appreciate, as, I know you're a parent, when you're a parent and you're more mature, you think back to your childhood, and then you really appreciate, the things your parents have said to you. Well,
Leslie, I'm glad you say that, because that's what I keep telling my children.
Right.
I share some wisdom with them from time to time, try and be a good dad and lead them on a good path. And, they'll just kind of go, yeah, whatevs, bro, type of thing, right? And then I just respond with, well, that's fine. Just know that when you're my age and you look back on this time, you're going to remember, man, Dad was trying to hook us up with some wisdom and some direction. And
that's true.
we didn't appreciate it, or at least that's what I like to believe. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I also spoke with Sarah Getz, the daughter of Arthur Getz.
Okay.
Basically the same answer. He was a good dad.
That's great.
Amazing New Yorker artist, and also a lovely fellow, apparently. Well, whatever your dad said to you, it must have worked, because your first assignment was with the New York Times op-ed page at the age of 15.
Yeah. I mean, I started working at a really young age, but I had the advantage of learning about the business, obviously, through my whole entire life. And, as a professor, I'm always asking my students, because most students have no one in their family who's an artist. And I'm like, how do you even get to where you are without having that background in it?
Sure.
But I was lucky enough to, meet a lot of people who were, art directors, and opportunities would come to me at young ages where I could work on assignments. And I was constantly, I was working in a sketchbook at a very young age. I was working on a portfolio at a very young age. When I was in college, I was working on assignments at the same time, sometimes asking my professors if I could exchange an assignment for a professional assignment that I was working on. So yes, it was a tiny little illustration. It probably was like, 2 inches by 3 inches or so. And it was like an ink drawing for the op-ed page with, it was a pig. It was also a bank. So instead of it being a piggy bank, it was a bank that was a pig. So
that works.
Yes. So at 15, that was my first project. Yes.
It is currently hanging at the Society somewhere. Speaking of the Society.
Yes.
So in March of 2025, I spoke with Arabelle Leopold, the executive director of the Society. I'm sure you wear many hats as the president of the Society. The 4th female president, if my research is worth a damn?
Yes, that is true.
What would you say is your most important hat?
My most important hat is supporting in a positive way, representing what the Society of Illustrators is. It's something that I really love. It's natural to me. There's no faking or making believe my feelings towards it. I've been going to the Society of Illustrators since I was just a few years old. I grew up going there when my father had meetings and, lunches and, that's where we would meet. So really supporting and representing it in networking, bringing people into it. I was there last night. I actually presented the Hamilton King Award to the Balbusso twins last night. So I go there to welcome the community to an organization that I love. I'm usually the first one on the stage to talk to everybody whenever there's an important event. So I think my hat is to just, I come up with ideas. I have thoughts of things. But Arabelle's, she's an incredible executive director. I became president a few months before she became executive director. So we've kind of grown together in a way, and we have a great partnership. It's fun. So that's really what I do for them. And just to bring people into it, talk about it, and always, help it go into the future in a positive way.
Speaking of that, so I was listening to a podcast recently in which the guest implied that museum curation is devoid, that's my word, not hers, of storytelling. I disagree. I think the opposite is true. I think curation is storytelling. What are your thoughts?
Well, in the Society of Illustrators is all about storytelling. So I think if any museum is going to have storytelling, the Society of Illustrators has storytelling. I think every time we have a show, especially with illustration, it's talking about, what is happening currently in the world. Right now we have a retrospective show that's up because it's our 125th anniversary year. So our retrospective shows artwork from the permanent collection, and then it shows current pieces. And especially in illustration, when you have art from the past illustration, it's telling the story of what has happened in the history of our country and globally in the past. So storytelling for the Society of Illustrators is number one of what we do. It depends on what the museum is and what they're trying to get across. I think storytelling in curation is better now than ever in museums. Right. I feel that in museums, they're now trying to mix the past and the classic with contemporary and the future. So I've been loving the combination of what museums are doing now. I think it's a lot more interesting. I was at the Met for an Alice Neel show a couple years back, and they were actually bringing in classic pieces that Alice Neel was inspired by. And I thought, now that's really interesting. And I find a lot of the galleries and museums now are showing process as well, which is new. I was at the Gladstone Gallery a few weeks ago, and Peter Saul, who's one of my favorite artists, they were showing his process. And so to me, storytelling is now even more relevant and more important. I think people really want to see that.
Yeah, I would agree. What comes to mind for me when we're talking about this is the Delaware Museum. I can't remember what this was. A couple of years ago, had an exhibition in which they were highlighting women illustrators.
Right.
That would have been highlighted were they not women. You know what I mean? We would know who they were. We would know their names. We would study them in art school if they were dudes. And that's clearly a story.
Right.
And so, gosh, the curator's name is Heather Campbell Coyle.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think museums are actually improving their storytelling. I find now that we're on our phones, we could so easily look for information or look up pieces of art that, we want to know about. So when we go to a gallery or a museum, I really feel it has to be more than just pieces up. The storytelling is really important. And process, I find process is so important to people because
oh my God,
we just, so many people who don't really know the business just think these things just appear. They don't know all the work that goes behind every painting, every drawing. There is. So what these galleries are doing, I think it's really like a new way of showing things, and it's really important and it's better.
Yeah. I often tell illustrators that I work with, that I mentor, that they are also curators of their own work. Their website is a gallery.
That's right.
They are a curator. They are the primary exhibiting artist. They're the curator. They're the facilities person. They're the marketing person. Like they're all the things of their own galleries. Process is also part of the curation. So I often recommend to illustrators, let's see how you did that. Let's see a studies page where you show how you got to that finished piece, your visual thinking. Post it on social media. I feel like those posts, especially on Instagram, when I see someone go, here's a sketch, here's the art, here's how I got to it. I love those posts. And I think those are the ones, there's a reason why those posts get more engagement. I feel
agree.
yucky even saying that word, but you know what I'm saying?
No, it's true. And, I've been curating the member show at the Society of Illustrators since 2013. A couple years ago, I was thinking exactly what you were saying. And I created 2 shows 2 years in a row. One was on sketchbooks, because to me, sketchbooks are number one. That's where people are really relaxed about what they're doing. They're not worried about a client. And that's where they're doing the most interesting work, I personally feel. So we had a show on sketchbooks, which was really popular and great. And the other show that I created was called Whip, which I just love the title of that, which was work in process. But people wouldn't know. They're like, Whip, what is this about? So it was all about process. It's amazing how often I'll talk to somebody about illustration and they say, what is illustration? Like, they're looking at illustration all the time. They have no idea what that even means. So having a show on process and showing people who especially are not in the industry too, to see what processes. But as an artist, when I walk in somewhere and I see their sketches and their little scratchy thumbnails and where it goes at the end, that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, now I have Devo in my head. When a problem comes along, you must whip it. Do you ever see
That's
them live?
right. Of course. I never saw them live. And actually, they were playing live really close to where I live. And I was thinking I should really see them. I go to concerts a lot, but I never saw Devo. Have you seen them?
No.
No.
I wish I had.
No. They're touring right now, actually.
No, they're not. Really?
Yeah, they are. They were actually going to be in Portchester, which is very close to where I live. And I think in July, you might have a chance if you want to.
Don't hold your breath. I don't know if I'm going to make it up there.
I've always, besides the visual arts, I've always been a big music person. I'm on the board of directors of a music venue
FTC?
as well. Yes. And, being up in Connecticut, it's really connected me to a community.
Right.
They're also having a retrospective, and they just let me do anything I want, and all like music, art. So I love my connection with them.
You almost had a perfect joke there. A connection. Connection. You almost did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Now whip it into shape. Shape it up. Get straight. Sorry. All right.
I'm
listen
a
to
new
Devo later.
Well, I'm a new wave person because I was in the new wave time. So I do love new wave.
I was a techno person.
Yeah.
My kids keep making fun of me for it.
That's
with
techno's
love.
good
With
too.
love.
Yeah.
That's what I keep saying. And they're like, you listen to this? And I'm like, yeah, I was 17. I'm Italian. I'm listening to techno.
Well, it all comes back around now. It's like, what you liked back then it's like not cool. Then all of a sudden it gets this genre comes back again.
I'm on a early 2000s kick at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm listening to Air.
Okay.
Moon Safari specifically is the name of the album, and Saint Germain.
Right.
And then every now and then, especially when I'm working out, it's a Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
That's my workout. That's my running music.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, music, I always say music makes your brain sing. That's always my line. There's something about music and what it does to people.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to connect myself a lot and to music, and being on the board of directors of a music venue has been amazing.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation.
I can't listen to podcasts while I'm running. That it's always music when I'm running.
Okay.
One of the things with all of this, being at the Society of Illustrators and speaking with a lot of people, really when I'm running, I don't want to hear anyone talking. I just want to hear music.
I get that.
I need the vibe of like that music going too.
Yeah. Leslie, I totally understand that. That's why I get up at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
Really? That early?
Oh, yeah. An hour or an hour and a half before everyone else does, because I just want a solid hour of nothing but a little music in the background or silence. And I just want to, I don't want to talk to it because I talk constantly.
Right.
Always talk. I talk so much every single day that I keep getting the hiccups from talking so much.
Really? Your diaphragm. That's your diaphragm.
Yeah, I know. I'm a terrible breather, apparently. Anyway, among the millinery, that's a hat reference, you're a working artist. You've been a professor at various colleges.
Right.
You're the incoming, as of this recording, director of the Master of Fine Arts and Illustration program at the University of Hartford, where you also went to school.
Yes.
Replacing C.F. Payne, another podcast guest.
Yes.
What do you think has led to so many opportunities presenting themselves to you over the course of your career?
That's a wonderful question.
All right.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was interesting because it was about luck.
Mm-hmm.
And
was it mine?
That one was not yours.
All right.
I'm sorry to say, but
it was
just about, no, it was, I listened to your podcast a lot and I can quote from that as well, but this one was not. And it was about luck. It's a podcast more on mindfulness and health and wellness and things. And I like to listen to that.
You have another hour because we could talk about that.
Yeah. And I love listening to things like that. Mm-hmm. It was saying that people think like, a lot of times, I'm not saying about myself, but, things come to people for lucky reasons. And it was saying, no, that's really not true. Opportunities come to everyone, but it's people who actually jump on opportunities in certain ways and then make things happen. Mm-hmm. I've always been really open to opportunity. Mm-hmm. I truly, we were talking about, wanting quiet time sometimes, but I actually truly love talking to people. Mm-hmm. I love hearing their stories. And I really love partnership, collaboration, and really meeting new people and interesting people from all different places and all different occupations and things. So I think a lot of opportunities have come from me, like opening my mouth and saying that I'm interested in something. And, funny enough, one of my biggest turning points in my career was just something that I had realized that I had been in my studio for about 20 something years, working on amazing assignments, great assignments as an illustrator, talking to myself all day long, making, ideas and how I'm going to do this, to a point that at night I could hardly even speak because I was speaking within my own brain all day long, what line I was going to do next, how I was going to go about doing something. And I was actually at a family party, and I was talking to a friend who was a very well-known interior designer, a very talented guy. And I said, I want to do more. I want to do this. I want to do, this. And I got a call a couple of weeks later, and he said, I have an opportunity for you. And I said, what is this opportunity? He said, one of my friends has a party. I was like, a party? He's having a party. I think you would be perfect to design this party. I was like, all right, well, let me talk to him. Well, long story short, it ends up, this was going to be a party at a music venue, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. Sure. And he wanted to have a small party for 150 people to surprise his wife, who had been sick but was now feeling great, and wanted to bring in her favorite band, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So this is because I had opened my mouth and said I wanted to do something a little different. I was like, wow, how am I going to design this? It's a big venue and I'm going to design this party. My son, who was young at that point, he says, Mom, you had to fake it till you make it. And I was like, fake it till I make it. So I actually created this amazing concert party. And I realized, when you're trained as an illustrator and you've been in the art world, you can visualize. It doesn't have to be just on a piece of paper. You can visualize a room. You could create sketches to create something huge and magnetic. So that was a turning point in my life, because I realized I can do anything with the background that I have on it. And it gave me a certain confidence. And from there, all of a sudden I was doing incredible gallery shows. And it opened up a lot of opportunities for me that I was thinking, I can do this. And I would just basically opening your mouth and telling people. So, I wanted to teach. And I spoke to the chairman. This was at FIT years ago. And when I opened my mouth, he said, yeah, well, we'll save you a class. And then, now it's 19 years later.
Yeah.
So different opportunities have come. I can't even say, people say, what motivates you? What motivates me is really my passion and love for certain things that I do. And I do my best at them, and things come, and then I do my best on the next thing that happens.
Great advice. Like, just open yourself up to these opportunities.
Yes.
Talk to people, reach out to people. I agree with you 100%. I'm going to play the other side a little bit.
Okay.
Because I have done what you did. I have reached out to folks and said, hey, I would love to teach for you. College is nearby where I live. And nothing has come of it yet. I'm going to continue doing it. I will check back in with them from time to time. What you're saying is what everyone should be doing, but let's be real about it. It doesn't always work.
Well, that's really true. All right. So now you're putting me in the other mindset.
All right.
All right. That's absolutely true. And I think a lot has to do with my personality, because there have been negative things along the way. And actually, when I was telling you that story, I didn't even think of those things. There's been positions that I wanted, which I didn't get.
Yep.
My father, who was my biggest fan, passed away one day in the middle of everything. And I, made the best of much as I could of what that situation was.
Right.
So I can think of certain things that happen, and, it was painful. It was hurtful. It took me a little while. Then I always say to people, so then I picked myself up off of the floor and I said, all right, I'm going to do this and this. And I've realized through life, and I think as you get older, you realize these things more and more. Not everything is going to work the way you want it to work.
No.
But I also feel like a lot of things come afterwards. And if I had gotten that other position, I wouldn't have this position that I'm really happy about right now.
Right.
So yes, you're absolutely right. I try not to think about the negative things. And I think, wow, this came and this came. But in the middle of everything, there were negative things also.
Sure.
Not everything comes the way you want it to come. And things can be really disappointing. I mean, assignments that don't come that you wanted to, that you were competing for, books that you wanted printed that no one has taken up on.
Okay. My hand is raised on that one.
Yeah. I mean, that's like part of like life, and it's really hard. And I always think like we all get these little nicks on us as we go along, thinking like, oh, wow, this was hurtful, and wow, that was painful. But you can't hold yourself back. You have to somehow, crawl, get off of the floor and say like, all right, I'm going to be good, and I'm going to try something else, and something else can come from this too.
Of course, like you, me, most people listening, if not everyone, has experienced rejection, has experienced, bad news or traumatic experiences or really, the gamut. It's not easy to pull yourself up off the floor. Right. But at some point you will. And then you just keep moving forward, because the things that you want to happen may not happen exactly the way you think or in the timeline that you set for yourself, but things will happen if you keep going. If you don't, guaranteed 100% it won't happen. So give yourself that chance is the point. I've been rejected 1,000 times by editors, by, publishing companies, by name it.
We all have.
Yeah. I mean, I was this close, millimeters close to having a director position at an art school here in Wilmington, and didn't get it. And it was heartbreaking. I stayed in bed for a whole day. I just didn't want to get out of bed because I thought it was in hand. And it was at a time when, it was a really sort of coming out of a depressive episode, let's just say. And that would have helped. And then I didn't get it, and that just sort of plunged me back in. this close to getting a book deal, didn't get it. So like, okay, sucks, really sucks. And I allowed myself to be really angry about a lot of that. But you just keep going and do things like, and you said it yourself, like you just said, for the love of the game. I did it for the love of the game. I offered my assistance. It wasn't like, please pay me, please give me a job. It's, hey, can I do this for you? I'd love to do this for you. And so you do these things, and those things tend to lead to things.
That's, what I feel is I do things because I love it. And there's a lot, we're all asked to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I'm really good at things that I'm really into. But when I'm not into something, I can't pretend. I'm either love it or I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And, one of the examples right now, and this has led to other things, New York City, I do this big project for New York City under the mayor's office. Mm-hmm. I received a call through someone had recommended me and said, you have to call Leslie. We want to start a program in New York City where instructors are paid to teach classes throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. And then people in the 5 boroughs can go to these classes for free.
Yeah.
So they called me for my advice of how to go about doing this. I said, why don't you let me be a consultant on it? And they said, New York City can't have consultants. And I said, well, how about I'm a curator on it? They said, we'll get back to you. And they said, yes, you can curate it. Well, I actually have created over 200 classes in New York City. Right now, I have 54 running where I pay instructors to teach classes, and they're free to people in the 5 boroughs of New York City. They're happening all over New York City right now.
Nice.
It's crazy. I have this Excel sheet, which is nuts, of all like the instructors and all the things going. And people say, what, you do all these things? I love all these things.
Yeah.
Like it's work, but because I'm doing that, then something else comes from it. Can you do this? Or we'd love you to do this. And so it's for the love of wanting to do it. I'm not even thinking, wow, this is crazy. This is going to be like so much work. I just do it because I love it.
Yeah, me too. For me, it's there's certainly a few things that I would love to have happen. Is that even proper English? Certainly things I would love to happen in my personal life, professionally, for me, right? That may or may not happen. Fine. In the meantime, I'm going to spend my time helping others, figuring out their dreams or helping them with their portfolios. I don't know. Trust and patience. Trust that something will happen and you'll love it, and have the patience to like buy yourself as much time as you could possibly buy.
Giuseppe, I think that's the best thing you can do in life, like what you're doing, looking at, mentoring people, and going back to what you were asking me about my father. I think he's an amazing artist. Everyone will say that, but to me, it's his legacy of how he helped others. And I feel like he did that because his parents did that. And I think what you do for other people, and I just accepted an award from New York City called the Audi Award. And it was for these things that I had done.
Your resume is like 3.5 miles long.
No, it's like, but I'm just telling you this because they said, like, when I spoke about it, I said to the people in the audience, I said, do things for your community.
Definitely.
If you're volunteering or helping people in your own community, what comes back to you is so amazing. And I really believe that, like, you mentoring people, mentoring students, looking at their portfolios, mentoring professionals, looking at their portfolios, that is like number one. All these other things will come, but the joy of helping others and then all the other things that come from it are really what I feel life is all about.
Yeah, of course I agree. There was a moment in my life where I wanted to give up, like, all of it, if you catch my meaning. And my wife said to me, all all you can do is put good out into the world. Like
that's
help
right.
other people and see what happens. And so I turned my attention to that, and no coincidence that I got better quickly.
You feel better.
I feel better too. Yeah. And, nothing, my favorite emails are the ones where I get randomly. I'll just, be washing the dishes, check my phone. Oh, got a new email. It's an illustrator. Hey, Giuseppe, remember me? We talked, months ago. Guess what? And then they tell me that they got a book deal, they got an agent, or they got all these things. And I can already hear it. It sounds very self-serving what we're discussing here. But it's honest and fuck it. It's my podcast. I can say whatever.
No, I don't think it's self-serving at all. I mean, when you're giving out to the community, it teaches the next person too, like to give out. Back to this the other day, like this senator of New York, who's the head of culture and arts, he was presenting this to me. And when I got up to talk about it, and I was speaking about, giving to your community and the importance, after the ceremony was over, he came back up to me and he said, I want to go home and I'm going to tell my daughter what you said in your speech. I think it's so important. From that night, with everything that happened, that was just so nice. I remembered him saying that. Yeah. And that meant more to me than anything that happened that evening, that he was going to pass that on to now his daughter, who was going to think about that. Yeah. So I think those things. And so this has been a long circle of you asked me how I achieve certain things. I'm sorry. It seems like it went in this big, long thing.
You know what? Seriously, Leslie, this typically happens in any recording any chat I've had with folks. Usually the last 10 to 15 minutes, this kind of thing happens. It happens all the time.
Well, I think in the beginning, you're like, before you even come on, we're all talking like, whoa, what's he going to ask me? I'm like a little nervous thinking about that.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you get into it, I've turned away from my looking at my computer, even though it was nothing on it. And I'm just now I'm being more myself. So I'm sure that happens everyone that you interview. All of a sudden, everyone gets into the mode of who they really are.
Yeah. Well, speaking of who they really are, what piece of advice or word of wisdom or word of encouragement would your father share with illustrators listening if I were talking to him right now? Maybe he'll drop a couple F-bombs or something. We'll see. Stephen Heller once quoted him as basically saying, illustrators can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
That was a pretty great quote. And then what would you say? So let's start with your dad and then with you.
My father was very supportive to illustrators who worked really hard, and he loved unique illustrators. So I feel that his advice would be just to be who you are. And it's pretty similar to what I always say, but my father always said, take in the culture around you. It's what you read. He read a lot. He watched a lot of classic movies. He went to a lot of galleries, a lot of museums. And he said, take in all the culture around you, because that is going to make you who you are. And then you're going to be able to create better artwork because you've taken all of these things in. And that was really important to him, of culture and bringing all that and being unique to who you are. I have that same, the same line that he said, I say to my students so often is, look around. It doesn't have to be just an illustration. Actually, I support them going to a lot of different galleries. It might be a sheet of paper they see or how something's framed, to take in culture, to read, to be aware of a lot of different things. And if you look around too much, if you look at other people, because now we're in the Instagram phase, my father passed away before all of that, lifestyle. And I say, if you're going to look at other people's Instagrams and what other people are doing, you're going to think wow, they do this great art. Can I do what they do? But if you're unique to who you are, nobody can be who you are or do your kind of work. So you have to just be supportive of your personal views and, your personal art, and you will be the best at who you are.
To learn more about Leslie, visit lesliecober.com. If you find value in this podcast, consider becoming a patron. In return, you can access bonus episodes, receive invitations to our Art Directors After Hours series, and get a 10% off discount code for all ID offerings. Become a patron by visiting patreon.com/illustrationdept. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.